Well, good morning. Why does it look dark out there this morning? I don't know.
Bring up the house lights.
Is there less light? Okay. Well, I can live with it, I think. Anyway, I can see your smiles. And you know, the other thing I can see is the people who sit in the same seats every week. And I remember if you're here or not, okay? Yeah, just so you know. Yeah. But this morning we're going to continue talking about living untethered. That's the word, right? Yeah, living untethered. And last week we talked a little bit about this thing inside of ourselves. We call it self sometimes, but we don't know where it is. And we certainly don't know where it comes from, unless it comes from divine mind. And I don't know what that really is. It's a definition of mind, but I don't know what it really is. And sometimes I find myself really challenged to find myself, okay, to know myself, to understand what I'm thinking in a given moment. And that's all about the mind that we work with. And as we go on this journey together, what's happening, I hope, is that each of us are beginning to say to ourselves, who's in there? Hello, are you there? Where are you? Come on, show up, I need your help. And I'm beginning to start each morning just about that way. Now, Vicki thinks I'm a little crazy. I said, good morning, honey. Who's in there? She said, I got to take care of the dog. Anyway, so we are on this journey to try to make sure that what's happening is that we're not projecting into the world the moments that we regret, the moments that we hang on to, the moments that really hold us back because we hang on to them. But we're trying to go on this journey of where we become self-enlightened, where we start to understand that we don't have to live in the human predicament, that we are more than that. And so this morning, as we start on this journey, what I'd like to do is just share with you, that's the book there, it's in the bookstore, by the way, that I'm talking about and using as a series. And the first thing we're going to talk about this morning is self-acceptance, the art of letting go. When we truly accept ourselves, all of our experiences, and know that they're actually okay, that's when we are able to let go. That's when we're able to step into life, to be comfortable with ourselves, to be joyous, to be fun, and to be compassionate, to be caring, and to be love itself. When we're willing to step in and let go of the moments in the past. And so what happens is, Michael Singer in a few chapters talks about this thing called the mind. And what is the mind? And there are a lot of different definitions of it. But basically, the mind is a series of definitions psychologically that is at work within us. And it's something that we literally can have control over, even though we don't think so sometimes. Because to have control over the mind means that I am directing the mind to direct the brain. Now, the mind and the brain are not the same thing at all. The mind manages the brain if you let it. But if you forget about that and you get into some kind of rut, what happens is the brain takes over and you're not using your mind. You feel like you're losing your mind. You ever felt that way? Yeah. And so what happens is that we have to understand that you and I, as the mind comes through the heart space, the way I see it, that I can use that mind and have it guide and direct my brain to think in a way that is in my highest and best interest and in your highest and best interest. I get to see the world through a different lens. I know, as we know in Maui, that there is tragedy that goes on in the world, and I can feel for that. I know that as I look at the war in Ukraine, that there is tragedy there, and people are losing their lives, and people are hurting, and people are losing their homes, losing children. That's a sad thing, a tragic thing. But I don't have to let it literally control my life. I can choose to do something about it if I'm in that position. I can certainly choose to pray about it, to meditate on it, and to see something different coming into being. But I don't have to let it weigh me down unless I choose to. Now, one of the things about the mind is that the mind experiences each moment that you live in. And what we know is that in each moment, oh, by the way, here's a picture of empty mind before I get to that, okay? Now, I'm going to get this right, just I've practiced all morning. Paramanda, that's close. Yogananda. That right? Yogananda. Wow, that's really good. Thank you. I used to say that really easy, and then something happened in my mind. Anyway, he says that he said he got up every morning, and again he would say, "Self, are you there? Good morning, self. Self, I want you to guide and direct me today. Self, I want you to set my intentions today. Self, I know that you are in charge of my life." Now, that's a pretty powerful statement, and it's a powerful understanding so that he came to the point that he did know himself. And he knew how to express ideas beautifully. He wrote a couple of books on the Gospels about Jesus. And the metaphysical interpretation are fantastic. But he did that through divine mind. He did that because he could go deep within himself, find himself, and be himself. And that's what we want to learn to do. But to have empty mind means that I get to the point in my meditation, I don't have any thoughts. Now be careful. If you think you're there, you might be sleeping. But what happens is that you really, and I don't know if I've ever been there or not, I like to think so a couple times, it's just the silence. And you're in the silence and you know it. And there are no thoughts popping up. And it's very, very, very affirming. But we can't stay there. We don't live life with an empty mind. Well, some people might try to, I guess. But we don't live life with an empty mind. Instead, what we want to do is understand ourselves from the perspective of our thoughts. And when we see our thoughts, what we start to understand is that our thoughts bring about the idea of personal mind. And personal mind is an accumulation of every moment you have experienced. Not every moment you've lived in, every moment you have experienced. During this lifetime and possibly during other lifetimes. It's integrated in and becomes a part of who you are. But it's personal because no one of us have had the same experience at the same time in the same way. I mean, we all know that we see an auto accident. The person on the right saw one thing, the person on the left saw a different thing, the person behind saw something else, and the person in front, if they're looking in the rearview mirror, saw something else. And so we all have this perspective on life and this projection that we put into life so that none of us have the same moment the same way. And so as we grow in our personal lives, the personal mind develops. And that personal mind now is taking in the moment. And when it takes in a moment that is painful, it stays there. It's the moment it remembers if we don't let it go. And we tend not to want to let it go. You know, some people really love living in drama. And even though it's somewhat uncomfortable, even somewhat painful, they still like being there for some reason because they know they're there. But at the same time, when they learn to accept themselves and accept that moment as it took place, and that is part of their growth opportunity, part of developing the personal mind that helps them on life's journey, it's then that they let go of the drama and step into the experience in a positive and loving way. What am I learning from this experience? And so we have this thing called the personal mind. We also have the psyche. I thought that's what it was. My eyes are not as good as that screen. So anyway, so what happens is we have this psyche that we develop. Now, the psyche is basically our total consciousness. It includes 4 elements, the way I like to look at it. It is what Unity calls the super consciousness. That's the Christ consciousness, the creative consciousness, the beingness consciousness, the God consciousness, whatever you want, and the divine consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And then we have also what we are conscious of in the given moment, what we can think about, the things we are aware of that we've experienced in our lives. And that's called the consciousness, our consciousness. But it's not our total consciousness, because there are 2 other levels of consciousness that appear according to Carl Jung. And they are 1, the personal subconscious, and 2, the collective subconscious. The personal subconscious is where maybe a child is told when they're very young that they're not very smart, and they buy into it, and they continue to believe it. And then they reinforce it by looking at other people and say, I'm not as smart as that person. So mama or daddy or whoever said that to me must have been right. And they carry that into life. And all of a sudden, one day, maybe something happens and they realize they really are smart, that they really do have the capacity to learn. And then, lo and behold, they start to learn. So that's an example of personal mind. I have taken a moment, I have projected it into myself and outside of myself. I have perceived what I think it means, and I buy into it. And I have lots of those moments. I'm sure you have. Lots of moments we can look back at and say, yes, I understand that. And I understand the effect it's had on my life. That's the personal mind at work. And then there is the, personal subconscious at work. And then there is the collective subconscious. Collective subconscious is the way that we experience the world and the effect it has on us. And you know, sometimes we buy into some of the stuff that the world teaches us without questioning it. I'm thinking this moment that in my family, a number of years back, there was a great deal of racism. And some would not accept that they were racist, and some did. Those who did started to do work on it. I watched my father change in his idea of what racism was. And I saw him let go of the resistance that somebody of color was less than he was. I saw him grow into having friends who were of another color, black and other, and also he had a real problem, because he was in World War II, with anybody who was Japanese or Japanese color. He said when he was younger and got back from the war, he'd walk down the street and he'd see somebody and get mad at him. Didn't even know him, just get mad at him. Because of the trauma, because of what he was taught and how he was trained to survive. But over time, about the time he was 40 years old and all the way up until his death, 89 years old, he grew, and he continued to grow because he started to see people for what they were. He started to understand that what he had been taught was not healthy. He started to feel much better about himself. And actually, what happened is that in the community he lived in Lake Gaston, there were a number of people who were African American, and there were a number of people who were white, and there were a few people who were Taiwan and the eastern, Far East countries. And they surrounded him in the neighborhood that he built in. And they were his friends. And we'd go to a party and everybody showed up. It looked like international night. You know, that was a lot of growth for my father. It took a long time. Because he had to get past the war. He had to get past his upbringing in the South. So he understood that we're all equal. We're all children of God. That we all have the capacity to love one another and care for each other and have fun together. And that's that collective unconsciousness that's around us and about us. And it affects how we think if we're willing to listen to it or get captured by it. And it is this collective unconsciousness that we have to work through and it is to step out of, look at our personal consciousness, and then when we look at our personal consciousness, we start to understand who we are, what we are, and how we need to change, if we need to change. How we want to change is more important. So that we become more of spirit, more of a divine realization here in this plane, in this place. And that we do have that capacity to do that and know how to do that. And so what happens is we come back to this thing of the mind. And you have a beautiful mind. We all have a beautiful mind. Now some people like Einstein, we think have a more beautiful mind than we have, okay? But really, when you think about the power of your mind, somebody invents something like the iPhone and you learn how to use it. Maybe. But you don't have to know how it was built. All you have to do is learn how to use it. And some of you are extremely effective with it. I mean, I love to watch people working with two thumbs. I go, wow, that's really cool. And then when I do two thumbs, nothing happens. Except a lot of stuff on the screen. But anyway, we each have a beautiful mind. We see our children, if we elect to, in a beautiful way. We see our lives evolving, and we understand that we have the power to make a difference maybe in another person's life. We see ourselves coming up with unique thoughts that are different than everybody else's. And that is a person that's a trailblazer. And we all do that. So don't fool yourselves. You have beautiful, wonderful, loving, caring, compassionate minds. That's why you are the family that you are here at Unity Renaissance. And so we look at this and understand ourselves in such a way that this beautiful mind has the capacity to, when we live in it and accept it and rejoice in it, to give us a life that is meaningful, that is fulfilling, that's not just looking at some past moment and clinging to it, but letting go of it. Because when we let go of those moments, you see, they get in the way of our ability to be creative. They get in our way of our ability to be loving. They get in the way of our ability to actually see the other person as the Christ. So our mind overall, in many ways that it shows up, is just fascinating and powerful. And so as we start to see this, what we start to understand is that when we are willing to accept life even as it's dealt with us, and when we're willing to step into that life instead of step away from it, when we're willing to let go of fear and live in love, we are now accepting ourselves for who and what we are. And then we are able to let go. Being aware of your mind, where it is, how you're using it, all is about the art of letting go. And when we let go, that means we are letting go of resistance and we're stepping into acceptance. We accept the way things are in this moment. But maybe you're not comfortable with that, so we create a new moment and create a new way of being and a new way of stepping into what is life itself. And so now what we will do is go into our moment of meditation. So let's just relax. And as we relax in this moment, we breathe in. Take a nice deep breath. And then release. Feel your body relaxing. And you feel that relaxation throughout your body. What you are doing is moving into a journey where you find yourself at the seat of the soul. That place where the mind brings us into our spiritual self within our body. And in this moment, know that you, the you in there, is in charge of your body, is in charge of your life, is in charge of your ability to love and care and make a difference. Take a moment just to feel the energy in this room. Feel it heart to heart, soul to soul. And as you do, know that this is the energy of life itself. And as it rises in you, use it to heal anything, any moment in the past. To let go. To be the spirit that you are. And be able to use your mind as a wonderful and beautiful thing. And so now let's just be in the silence, feeling ourselves sitting at the seat of the soul. And for this experience of being in oneness, we are grateful, we are thankful, and we say, Amen.
Flow, Spirit, flow through me as I open up to be an expression of your unfolding peace. Show, Spirit, show through me as I open up to be an expression